Whew! Oh my god. Oh my god. This fight makes my blood boil. UFC 299, what an awesome event. The preliminary card is awesome as well. When you got fights like Jailton Almeida versus Curtis Blades and Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos on a preliminary card, you know that you have a banger at your hand. But I will be breaking down mostly main card and give some type of prediction as well for each fight. With the first fight, Petr returning against Song Yadong. Obviously, Petr is coming off of losses, pretty high profile losses. And the last one was the most probably devastating one because he got completely dominated by Merab. And you got Song Yadong coming off of wins, but he lost his big moment against Corey Sandhagen. So now he gets another one against Petr. So this will be another sink or swim moment for Song Yadong. And I believe that he will sink it this time as well if Petr is anything like his former self. I just believe that Petr will be just too experienced, just too crafty. His boxing is just too good, and at a certain point in time, he was the guy who put MMA game together probably the best way. So what I mean by that, you got your striking, you got your wrestling, you got your jiu-jitsu, and you need to put them together. You may be good at all of those areas, but also another skill is putting them together. By far, he was the best guy who was transitioning between the techniques and between the disciplines the best at a certain point in time. But then a significant hole was exposed in his game, which was his jiu-jitsu, and he didn't know how to deal with certain positions. But all around, I think Petr is a better fighter, more experienced fighter. Unless he's broken mentally, I believe he'll come back and beat Song. Plus, two of his losses were close fights. One was a title fight against Aljamain Sterling, and that's the fight I was talking about, where Aljamain Sterling exposed his positional weakness on the ground. There was another fight in Abu Dhabi against the current champion Sean O'Malley, and some people claim that he won, and actually there's a lot of people who think he won the fight. Okay, so the next fight we got Gilbert Burns returning against Della Maddalena. Obviously, Burns had a shoulder injury in a fight against Muhammad Belal, and he fought with the injured arm. He injured it doing a takedown, double leg takedown, and landed a bit badly in the first round, and he basically fought for the rest of the fight until the end, like it was a 5-round fight. He fought with the injured shoulder, pretty much one shoulder, and he had a significant injury. He didn't get a surgery, as he mentioned. He had a stem cell treatment, and now we will see how his shoulder will be. On the other side, we got Jack Della Maddalena, who is one of the top prospects, I would say, at least on paper, that's coming up. A lot of people are talking very good about him. He has a very nasty boxing and fairly decent grappling as well. And a lot of hopes are bestowed upon him, but he had very close fights, last two fights. Both of them were split decisions against Hafez and Holland. And against Hafez, he had a close fight on a short notice, and it was a short notice for his opponent, not for Jack Della. Basil Hafez gave Jack Della Maddalena all he could handle and almost took that fight away from him. We saw some holes in Jack Della's grappling, but mostly it was his tactical mistakes that landed him on the bottom, and he had a hard time then dealing with those positions. But he persevered he persevered in all of those situations at the end. But you cannot make those mistakes against Gilbert Burns. So we will see how he cleaned up his tactical mistakes and also some of the technical mistakes, and whether he will be able to stay on the feet. If he decides to grapple with Gilbert Burns, most likely it would be very bad news if Gilbert is anything that we know him to be. But in the stand-up department, Gilbert Burns is not a present for anybody, and we have seen that time and time a lot. Only thing that worries me is that Gilbert has been hurt by jabs and by punches in general. So he can be hurt and he can be finished standing up. So that's my only worry for him, if he can take Jack Della's power long enough. But I think if he mixes up his striking with his wrestling and jiu-jitsu, I think he will put Jack Della in some bad situations. And once Gilbert gets his grappling going, I don't think Jack Della will be able to handle him. But this is not to say that he cannot survive for a couple of rounds. He could, but it will be a whole different ball game against Gilbert Burns. I'm gonna go here a little bit with my heart on top of my analysis, and I'll pick Gilbert Burns, but would not be shocked if Jack Della finds a shot and stops Gilbert as well. Okay, the next one we got Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. It's usually a lot of different questions when a new fighter arrives in the UFC, and if they're a seasoned fighter, how they will actually be able to measure up to the competition in the UFC. If the history is any indication, then most of the champions or former champions coming over from top organizations such as Bellator outside of the UFC, we can say that they usually prove themselves to be top UFC fighters as well. Not all of them become champions, but some of them have, as we know, like Eddie Alvarez for instance, and some of them have fought for the title and have defeated top contenders. So usually it means that they are top of the line fighters. Plus, in my opinion, a lot of those guys, they know where they are skill-wise because they are training with other top-level athletes who are in different organizations, so they can usually gauge their position in the world rankings fairly closely. So that means that if you are a top 10 guy in the world, you probably know about it. Plus, they usually have also big stage experience, not UFC experience, but still fighting in top organizations. It usually means that you are used to those nerves as well. And somebody like Michael Venom Page will probably be ready mentally as well. Kevin Holland, on the other hand, is a very crafty guy. He has had some issues in the past, mostly because of his takedown defense and him being able to be controlled on the ground or taken down by top level guy like Hamza and submitted. But he has beaten some very high level opponents as well. Unless Kevin Holland has been strictly working on his grappling for this match, I do expect a stand-up fight mostly here. And you have to take Michael Venom Page as the favorite in the stand-up fight. Michael Page has demonstrated some good defensive wrestling, good takedown defense in his last loss against Logan Storley, who is a D1 wrestler. So it gives us no indication that he would not be able to deal with the wrestling and the grappling of Kevin Holland. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Michael Venom Page to win this fight, but it's a close fight. And we'll see if Michael Venom Page has any hopes of having title aspirations in the UFC. Woo! Oh my god. Oh my god. This fight makes my blood boil. These are the moments that I live for as an MMA fan. I mean, these are the moments that I'm waiting for, and we don't get them often. We get them on a certain level, but this may be a special fight, and I hope I'm right about that. It's another sink or swim moment for French Benoit Saint-Denis. This man is a killer in and outside of the cage, quite literally, and he definitely brings excitement to the fight. I mean, just super exciting contender. And as an MMA fan, I believe that the division needs him, and the division needs him to be legit. And this fight will decide that factor, if he's actually gonna be a title challenger soon in the future or not. So let's look at Benoit. Benoit is a very aggressive fighter. He actually has an underrated IQ in my opinion. He puts together full MMA game really well as well. He has very good jiu-jitsu, and I think he uses jiu-jitsu in a very classical, traditional, effective style, how to get up and how to reverse positions and how to find his way to the back, good takedowns, good killer instinct, goes all in on the chokes, and just a finisher on the ground as he's on the feet as well. Will he be able to create problems for Poirier in the grappling department? I believe he has a good shot of doing that, especially if he mixes up with his striking, because if you let Poirier settle in and have a good striking match with good distance, just going punch for punch, I think Poirier usually does pretty well against most opponents. He has very good and clean boxing. I believe that Benoit probably doesn't have as clean hands as Poirier and as good of a boxing technique as Dustin, but all around striking, he is just a brutal striker. He lands high kicks, body kicks. I think his fight against Bonfim was pretty impressive as well. I think Bonfim is an interesting character as well, and he completely destroyed him. He was an underdog in that fight and just smashed his ribcage and his arm with his kicks, and he probably would be able to land that on Poirier as well to some level. Poirier would most likely need to back him up considerably and throughout most of the fight to avoid that shot. But I think Benoit has a way of creating a distance for him to land that kick to a certain level. On the other hand, when I look at Zaleski dos Santos fight, that doesn't look like a guy who could beat somebody as crafty veteran as Poirier, but I think he's come a long way, and it was also a fight upper division on the short notice, so we cannot fully judge him based on that. I think he has developed quite a bit, but it's going to be a big step up for Benoit, and there's going to be a serious sink or swim moment, as I mentioned. Poirier, on the other hand, probably has one foot out the door. He's a dangerous fighter against anybody, but he's also coming off of a head kick knockout, which will affect him most certainly on some level. He has also been in many wars against very top level fighters, so all that kind of adds up, and he's now talking about his financial situation, how everything is going well, and God bless him, that he's not fighting for the money anymore, that he wants it, that he needs it. But again, we don't fully know what the true motivations are. Sometimes fighters leave a bit too late. They enjoy this moment of glory, and usually that's their downfall as well. And to some level, it can be also about the money, because he's getting paid fairly handsomely by the UFC, most likely. He's one of those fighters, and we don't know how hard he's, with all the distractions that businesses can be, we don't know how hard he's working towards being the best in the world. So against somebody like Benoit, I think that can be very dangerous. So for the sake of the excitement, I will go for Benoit Saint-Denis, even though I do have my reservations how he'll be able to do with Poirier's experience and boxing. And I do expect a good fight in general. I could see a finish, but I believe that to a certain point they'll be evenly matched. And then after some point we'll see one of the fighters take over. And I'm gonna go with Benoit Saint-Denis in this fight. I think the division needs him. The likelihood of Dustin Poirier ever being a champion is probably very, very low, unless some crazy things align. Short notice fight against somebody, we've seen that in the past. Only real challengers who have any shot of beating Islam Makhachev in the lightweight at the moment are Justin Gaethje, if he gets past Max, the winner between Oliveira and Tsarukian, and the third guy is probably Benoit Saint-Denis if he gets through Dustin Poirier. Okay, we got the rematch for the main event, Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. There's a reason why Sean O'Malley picked Marlon Vera to fight for the title as his first defense. He's probably one of the best guys. I mean, he had to pick someone. He's probably one of the best guys that he can fight stylistically, even though we know that he has a win over him. But that win was not a standard win. We know that Sean got hurt in that fight, but he has been hurt in other fights as well. And it does matter for a fighter that he's injury prone or not. And this also comes with a huge amount of confidence that Marlon Vera will be carrying into the octagon, because he has a win over him. And in that fight as well, when he was going in, he was supposed to lose. He was supposed to be this sacrificial lamb for this new future superstar, wink wink. And Marlon Vera does carry a power and a style which could create some issues for Sean, because Sean needs distance and Vera will be pressuring him, but again, it also may come as a downfall for him, where he could get caught by one of those big shots from Sean. I think path to victory for Marlon Vera would be to mix up his striking well within the striking area, and also mix his grappling with striking as well. Both of the fighters are good grapplers, but if Marlon Vera can find a way to put him on the back. Marlon Vera is one of those fighters who is looking to improve all the time, and he's going and working on different disciplines of MMA all around the place. He's working on his jiu-jitsu with Mendes brothers in Art of Jiu-Jitsu, and that's one of the top jiu-jitsu schools in the world, and they have a very full and well-rounded grappling game there, and this may come in handy in this fight. If you can get the takedown and start attacking from the top position and play his game, I think he may impose his game on Sean O'Malley, especially with the ground and pound, which should not be discounted, because in the last fight, even though Sean was injured, he was in his close guard and he finished him off with the ground and pound, which was pretty vicious ground and pound. It was one of those damaging shots that he was placing on him from his from within his guard. He didn't pass his guard or anything. He did some serious damage. In some of the instances, when the guy's ankle is injured and he cannot stand, usually you could tell him to get up, and he can't get up, and usually the fight is over. And the previous fight having ended the way it ended in the end, it makes me think that it was not only foot, because usually unless your ankle is like completely broken, shattered, you can push through and stay in the guard and at least defensively defend yourself, because injuries are part of the game. But Sean was not able to do that. He was not able to either push through or Chito Vera's ground and pound was way too good. And he finished Sean off. Sean O'Malley, as we know, is Sean O'Malley. Okay, he's a very developing fighter as well. He has very good stand-up, very long, rangy, sniper-like shots that he hits people with straight punches and knocks them down, and sometimes even just knocks them out. And for the long periods of time, to allow him to get comfortable on his feet, it can spell out problems for anybody, including Chito Vera. So this is why it will be very important for him to mix it up and keep the pressure on and not give him distance. And on the other hand, Sean will have to keep all of those aspects for him to land that shot. And the 5 rounds is very long time. Not to get hit by a sniper like him, unless you are a very high-level wrestler, you can put him down and control him on the ground. I would say he surprised me in the fight against Petr. I thought that he would have some issues dealing with Jan's boxing, in and out movement and side to side movement, head movement, and also the power of Petr Yan. But he turned Petr Yan into a wrestler, which he did fairly successfully against him as well. This something to be noted. So clearly, Sean O'Malley should be the favorite, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that with the confidence and with the bad blood and with the hard work, Vera will defeat him. But obviously Sean is the favorite in the fight, and I don't have a problem with that.